Good evening and welcome to Back Alley Bonsai. My name is Michael, of course. It is a lovely chilly evening. It's been in the 70s, and that feels like good bonsai weather to me. It's been really quiet out here. It's a little breezy now, so hopefully we don't pick up too much background noise. But you work with what you got, and I try to work on at least one of these things every week. And today, what I'm going to be working on is this Portulacaria plant. This is a Portulacaria Afra. This is a native of Africa, hence the Afra name. Sometimes these are called dwarf jades, even though they're not really related to what we commonly call a jade plant, which is a crassula. Sometimes they're called elephant bushes because these leaves actually are in fact edible. They are full of water. And they are non-toxic, unlike jades, which I believe actually are toxic. I may be mistaken about that. Don't quote me on it. But somehow I got that distinct impression at some point or another. This is my first time really styling this. I've done some cutting on it and kind of done the quick hedge clipper prune on it, and it's really grown like really upward. And I'm kind of trying to grow this in like a traditional bonsai style. With a little bit more structure to it than this. So today I'm going to be making some branch selections and making some decisions about kind of how I want this tree to grow. And then I'm going to be moving it hopefully into a slightly nicer looking pot. It's about the same size. This is about the size I want this tree. So I don't really want it to do too much else, but I want to move it into a pot that I think looks a little nicer. I think terracotta looks better than green plastic. Nothing wrong with the green plastic for what it is. Cost me next to nothing, and that you can't beat. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And I've never really done any serious decisions about the front or back, unfortunately, because this tree is going to be going into a round pot. Whichever side I like is the front, and whichever side I like is the back, or don't like is the back. So that's not really too much of an issue. I'm going to get these chopsticks out of here. These were in here to stabilize the tree when I originally repotted it. It was very top heavy. I actually repotted this thing at the beginning of spring, and it has really just put down a ton of roots. It's really firmly in this pot, so that's really healthy and good. I'm glad to see that. So the first thing that I do want to do on this plant, though, is I want to take a look down at the root base and see if I can find. I'll actually get it out of here a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you can see all those roots. All those roots are actually brand new on this plant. Like, this had no roots when I stuck it in this container at the beginning of spring. So it has really rocked since then. So let me brush out kind of the top layer a little bit. I don't want to get too crazy. Move some of my stuff out of the way here. And that chopstick is partially rotted. So what I'm looking for is just to kind of see where the roots really start, where the base of this trunk actually is. And it looks like it is right there. So it's kind of where I thought it was going to be. It's a little off center, and I can fix that when I go to put it in the new planter. Yeah, there we go. So that's sort of our starting point. So any measurements that I take on the tree, like 1/3 up, 2/3 up, that kind of thing, are all going to be made from this starting point down here. So the first thing is that I want to make sure that I have a really strong branch growing at the bottom here. And I've got a couple of choices. I've got this one, and then I've got this one that's almost right above it. This one's a little weaker. But then I've got this big space right in here, which you can kind of see, which doesn't look great. And then I've got this branch here, which is growing really strong. One of the really nice things about these Portulacarias is they're really actually quite hard to kill. You really gotta work at it to do one of these things in. They'll basically grow from a leaf will grow a whole new tree. In fact, I think this one actually came off of a cutting. Well, let's start off with stuff that I know that I don't want. That's always a good place to start working on it. So I'm going to start off simply with this. I don't want downward facing branches. That's not really useful. And I don't really want an upward facing branch right here. So we'll just take that off as well. That also fixes that problem. So, and then again, I can take off this upward facing branch here. Don't really need that. And there's a downward one here, which I don't really need. What other things do I absolutely know that I do not need? So again, I've got 3 branches all coming out right here at this point. You can see the trunk counts as 1. Got trunk, branch, and branch. And ideally, I want to get myself down to 2 branches. And oftentimes, I want to take off the strongest branches to try and encourage the plant to have like a tapering growth. So, and all of this is actually really strong, and we can see all this really, really strong upward growth on it going on right now. So this might actually just be a time to do a big old trunk chop on it and kind of hope for the best. Because this is all really kind of straight and doesn't really change thickness at all on all the way up. And I'd really hate to do... Well, let me do this. I'm going to do a basic shaping prune. I'm going to get it into a triangular shape, and then I'll just see what I've got. That's oftentimes a good way, you know, when you're getting a tree just going to make decisions without having to really bust your brain too hard about it. Because you can spend forever like agonizing over this branch or this branch or this branch or this branch, and then you go to prune the whole thing into shape, and then like 90% of the work goes away. So I'm just going to get this thing into kind of a nice triangular shape towards the top. We definitely don't need to have all of this really aggressive growth at the top of the tree. There we go. Yeah, I think a lot of this may actually be just really easy on me. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to do it. Bite the bullet on this and just chop this way back to here. And that'll actually, I can root that. I can take this whole thing, I can stick it just in a bunch of dirt, and I can get a pretty nice looking little tree out of this all by itself. You know, regardless of what this thing does. In fact, I may actually take and stick this into the pot that the bigger tree came out of. We will get roots almost immediately on this thing. So that's actually, we'll cover that when I get done with this thing. So what's next on this? So what I've got on this is I've got a nice new leader coming out here. This is a little bit too, whoops, drop that. This branch right here is coming out a little bit too strong. Let me bring you in really close for this. So, like I said, what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to okay, so my next major decision is to try and figure out what I want to do as far as a new leader goes, which is the new part of the tree that's growing upwards towards the sun. And intuitively, it's going to be one of these two branches, and I'm not exactly sure which one. Whichever one I don't pick, the other is basically going to go. This one is really strong and thick, and at the top of the tree, my inclination is to go towards the weaker branch. So, you know, you'll notice that this branch is actually thicker than this one. It's thicker than the one below it. It's thicker than even the bottommost branch on the tree, which is not visually quite what you want on it. You want it to be thickest at the bottom, thick branches at the bottom, thinner at the top. So I think the next step is actually to remove that one as well. And I'll clean up a little stub right here, which I left behind from another one. And I've got a couple more, vertical branches hanging out over here, which I don't really need. Get rid of that. Got quite a bit of growth. This is all upwards. There's some stuff growing straight up right here, which I don't really need for what I'm working on, or that. This is growing downwards, actually, but if I cut this back, maybe this will grow out if I'm lucky. Yeah, that still gets me to this problem of these two branches right here, which you can already see is starting to bulge up just a little bit in here because of all of the sap flow in the area, which I don't really want. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get my concave pruners on this and see if I can get this to make a nice, smooth, flush cut on that. There we go. That looks really nice and even. And again, this one is not really where I want it to be, but I don't want to take it off completely, so I'm actually just going to cut it back to there, and we'll see what it does in the future. Ideally I'd like to see one of these two branches. I got actually two coming out of the same spot. I don't need that. I'm going to take the lower of the two because it's growing in a better direction. There's two little branches there. I'll pick up a few of these stray leaves. I'm going to take off this big one right here. Got some nice splitting right here. I got two growing out right there, so that'll work out. And then cut that back and hopefully get something growing in a slightly nicer direction. It's got this really sharp Y growing right there, which I don't really like. And that's that. That's just getting started on its way to becoming a bonsai. Sometimes some of these cuts are pretty aggressive. I'm gonna go through and clean this up a little bit. My concave pruners. I don't want to get too nuts because these Portulacaria Afras do sometimes have some dieback. So I want to make sure that there's enough room for that. And if I play my cards right, I'll get some vertical growth right there at the little leaf right there that is growing straight up. And like I said, if I get real lucky, I'll get some nice vertical growth out of that. The real bummer is that this is really straight, and I can probably fix this with some wiring later. It's okay as it is. It's probably a little straighter than I would like. I really need this branch right here. But it looks okay for kind of a formal upright tree. And I can get really aggressive with it and chop it all the way back to here, and then just see what comes out. Just chop it, all the way back, and essentially just start the tree like right there, and sort of start it over again. And that would give me some really nice aggressive taper. That's tough. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to convert the planting angle to something about like this. I've teased out the roots ever so slightly. I don't really want to do too much crazy stuff to it. This tree did get repotted, as I said, in spring, but it is bounced, or in early spring, it's bounced back really well. So now I'm just going to throw down a nice layer of soil in the bottom of the pot. And this pot doesn't really need a drainage screen. It's actually got a really small hole on it, so I'm not worried about soil falling out. Just want to make sure I get it at kind of the right angle, the right position. Something about like that, I think. Something about like that. Okay. And we'll get out a chopstick. Again, the universal bonsai tool of the chopstick. And just work the soil down into the roots. And again, that one's a little rotten. Fortunately for me, I have the stainless steel chopstick, which is even better. And so we're just going to kind of just sort of work the soil down into those roots. And this is the same soil I always use. It's just, you know, 1 part cactus mix, 1 part sifted diatomaceous earth oil absorbent, and 1 part pumice. Or perlite, depending on whatever I'm going to have available, readily available for me. I'm getting a little bit more soil in here. I know there's some little hollows in here. So I'm trying to make sure I get the soil worked down into. I kind of picked them out of the plant as I was working it, and they can create dead spots in the root ball, which is obviously to be avoided. Dead spots in the root ball are hard to recover from. They're going to have a serious negative impact on the longevity of the plant. All right, cool. So that is that for this one. Again, pretty extreme for what I started off with, but I think it's going to be better in the long run. It's going to take maybe a year or two to get to the next step. We'll just let it grow out, and we will see what all we wind up with for the next stage. But the plan is to have it come up and then twist, which will give me a little bit more kind of an interesting trunk, and then this will all sort of smooth out over time. Matter of fact, I may take and tip this up just a bit. I'm also a pretty firm believer in that there's no wasted material on a bonsai either. So, some people would be really extreme and just cut the whole thing back right there and just start growing. I'm not sure I want to do that. I may change my mind later. Yeah. There we have it. So we'll see what we get. So next we're going to take this top part that I cut off of that plant, and we're just going to take and turn this into its own separate bonsai, just because I think it looks really cool. It's a shame to waste all this material. So a couple of things I am going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take off some of these low branches. I still don't really want too much in the way of low down growth. I just kind of really want this cool cool looking twisty turny trunk on this. And again, the nice thing about these Portulacarias is that they will bounce back from just about anything. So I'm pretty confident about this. I'm just going to go through and look for places where there's too many branches coming out in one spot or too much congestion. Again, still don't really want stuff growing straight up and down. There we go. Okay, cool. So there's our nice twisty little trunk right there. I think it's gonna make a cool looking little tree. So I'm literally just gonna take, and I'm probably not even gonna put it into this container. I'm gonna grab a different container. I will be right back. So what I have here is a much smaller container. It's just a seedling pot. It's a much better, fit for this particular plant. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick it in there and see what happens with it. I've got a little bit of rooting hormone. Don't really need it for a crassula. It's kind of overkill, or not a crassula, but a Portulacaria. A little bit overkill, but why the heck not? I got it. May as well use it. Can't hurt things. So there's my rooting hormone. You can see right there on the bottom of the cutting. And again, same process. Just gonna toss some soil in there, just a little bit, just enough that it sits comfortably in the pot. And honestly, with this, there's not really anything fancy to a cutting. It's not one of these Portulacarias. You just put it in there, and then stick it in the thing, and then you water it, and it will probably do okay. And basically, every single one of those cuttings that I took off of there, I can do that with. Like I can probably do it with this one as well. Make a nice, cute little bonsai out of this too. And I may just do that off camera, just to see what I kind of wind up with. Same thing with this one right here, just to see what I get. Just because they're hard to kill and they grow really fast. Well, there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. As always, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on the video if you enjoyed it, share it with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, have a wonderful day.